Welcome to the Earth Project video series. Thanks very much for taking the time. Happy to have you here. I thought if you could start by just introducing yourself and letting people know who haven't met you or are not familiar, what your background is and how we come to be talking here, and also what your connection with the outdoor sports are. What are your sports?
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm George Bevan. My main sport is bodyboarding, although I do all kinds of other water-based sports mainly, and I'm an environmental consultant. So came to that profession from my love of the outdoors and from my love of the ocean, really, and wanting to do something to protect it, however small or large that may be, just wanting to do my part. So that's kind of how all that ties together.
Nice, yeah. And so let's talk first about bodyboarding and what drew you to it and what makes it special to you.
So my dad was a windsurfer, and that's kind of how I came to the sport, was being around the ocean and him doing that. And I picked it up, and it was one of those moments where you do something and you think, yeah, this is for me. It just felt right. And I love it, and I've stuck with it, and it's my sport because I just love being in the ocean. It's a bit of a cliche, but it does feel like home to me. It's my escape from everything that's going on, whether that's COVID or personal work life. It just relaxes me, puts a smile on my face. It's kind of like a club. It's not very mainstream, but when you meet anyone anywhere in the world, it's friendly. It feels like you've always known them. So I love that about it. And personally as well, because it's an individual sport, as most ocean sports are, it gives me the opportunity to kind of challenge myself, and there's no outside pressure of team. It's just me up against my own standards and what I want to do. And you can zone in and zone out. You can have a nice, calm surf bodyboard, in this case, a nice, calm bodyboard where you're just enjoying yourself, or you can really challenge yourself and want to ride bigger waves or do new moves. But you've got freedom in that to enjoy the ocean however you want to enjoy it. Big wave, small wave, you can always do whatever you want with a bodyboard, and you're free. There's not loads of kit. It's just your board and your fins, and you go out there and do whatever you want to do. And I like that freedom. So that's kind of why I love it so much.
Yeah, that's great. I can definitely understand where you're coming from there. And I think the one of the things that you just hit on there as an individual sport is you're interacting predominantly with the natural environment, and you're working very closely with that. You're almost your opponent, although that's not perhaps the right term. There's that connection that often is cultivated by doing these kind of sports. How do you sort of see that relationship with you in the natural world, and generally? And also I'm interested, in 2020, has anything changed with that, with your outdoor sports you're doing? Have you noticed any differences ongoing?
Yeah, I think that's just it. I think that's any surfer or windsurfer or any person that interacts with nature will know that part of the enjoyment is that you don't know what's going to happen on a given day. You don't know what the waves are going to do. You don't know how the swell is going to interact with the reef. You don't know what the wind's necessarily going to be like, even though the forecast says what it's going to be. And part of the enjoyment is the unknown. And that's what gets you up in, really early to go surfing, or that's the kind of the thing that keeps you tied to it, is the unknown. And for me personally, that goes for whether I'm doing something in the ocean or snowboarding or whatever it is. It's that interaction with the unknown, what's around the corner. And I love that, exactly how you phrase the question. I think that's what keeps you coming back. In terms of this year or last year and COVID, I think it kind of brought to the forefront of my mind how much of a release it is from everything that goes on. I think that kind of mental health side of things is massive. I've realized how much of an escape it was for me when I couldn't do it. And also, kind of for me personally, I did a lot of snorkeling and free diving kind of thing around home during lockdowns when we were able to exercise. And as part of that, did a lot of kind of like beach cleans and litter picks while snorkeling, so in the ocean, and kind of just having that fulfillment of not only being in nature but actually feeling like you're doing something positive for the world was really great. And also seeing around home, there were perhaps the odd discarded mask, but I think on the beach there was less pollution in the sense of day-to-day litter left by tourists or people walking. Of course, you've always got the the kind of sea, kind of like the longer term flotsam and things like that wash up, but the day-to-day stuff there was a noticeable change. So yeah, that's what I've noticed over the past year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's quite a good sort of transition then into sort of, you being out in nature and connecting with it, and then doing your sport, and then sort of starting to integrate some environmental action into your own life. And can you talk a bit about that and what you've started to sort of, environmental actions that you've integrated into your own life? I know professionally also, which we'll get onto in a bit, you've got stuff, but in terms of like, things that you are active with yourself, I'm interested how your sport has influenced that.
I think obviously over the past few years, plastic pollution has kind of come to prominence a lot, which is great to see, and people are much more aware of it. I think myself, being in the ocean a lot and walking down to my local beach to surf, you see the effect that has, and it's really, really made me think about what I buy and having these plastic-free challenges. And I think it's very difficult to do, and you realize how much needs to change on a large scale. But actually, if you make that conscious choice, you can live better and feel better about yourself, and often live healthier. So I kind of think that's the change that I've noticed that's come about from surfing is the plastic side of things, and trying to live as minimally from that as possible, really. As you said, there's other kind of professional things, but linking it from the surfing side, I think that's the main takeaway. That I've kind of changed my actions based on. Yeah.
And what did you say? Interested in what you said there. You did it because of environmental motivation, and you've been exposed to it, more clearly due to the your sport. But then you said it then brought healthier benefits to your life. Can you elaborate a little bit there? What did or you mentioned something about that just then?
Yeah, I think just because for me it was that I kind of knew that the alternatives were out there, but it was ease, to go to a supermarket and to put something in your trolley is easy, and we all do it. And I'm definitely still guilty of doing it. There are things that you like, and I think there are guilty pleasures, and we all do it. And that's not something to kill ourselves over or beat ourselves up over, I should say, sorry, because we make mistakes, but striving to be better. But from the health side, you realize that when you look, not only the things packaged more minimally, often because of the ethos of the brand themselves that do that, they're healthier, or by buying something from a whole food store in bulk, you're getting a far superior product with less processed sugar or whatever it may be, and you're putting more in your body. And then I think for me, it was also the knock-on effect of thinking about, okay, so if I'm doing this, what, you're opening yourself up to other things. You start looking at things and thinking, okay, well, for instance, this shop sells a lot of meat alternatives, or what about that? What about, it just opens yourself up, I think. And yeah, that was a kind of a change for me, I'd say.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think my feeling is a lot of people who engage in outdoor sports are a little bit ahead of the curve here, and on a lot of on a number of environmental issues. Where do you feel like generally, if we can talk about bodyboarders or just outdoor sports in general, where are we, those people who engage in that doing well, and where are the sort of like big sort of still work to do, kind of the hypocrisies that we have in our kind of lifestyles with these outdoor sports in your
I think for bodyboarding, I think it's interesting because I like to think personally, and I do think is the case, people are looking into environmental alternatives more now. So for bodyboarding, the boards themselves are foam, essentially, PE or PP boards, so basically types of plastic, which is not great at all. But more and more people are saying, okay, well, what about if we have a cork board? How does that? And people are looking into it. And for me, myself, I know, how long I use a board, and I 100% think that's not good for the environment. And yet, I love bodyboarding, and if my board breaks, I will get another board. So I think we are, as you say, we are all guilty. But at the same time, I think it's very true that the kind of the old adage of, no one will protect what they don't care about, and no one will care about what they've never experienced. I think it's kind of the opposite for people who engage in outdoor sports, because it feels like our own, it feels like home to us. Therefore, we feel a kind of an obligation to protect it. But at the same time, because you're so heavily invested in it, you travel to do it at the best wave, or and kind of that's a trade-off that I definitely think that we're all guilty of, but I don't think that that's necessarily a barrier to not doing anything. It's important that we all realize that we can do our small bits, and we can look to change the big things as well. And we can change the big things. We can decide that we're not going to go overseas and go to Bali. We're actually going to, go to Wales or wherever. But also, day to day, sports wise, you can buy a Ulex wetsuit. You can do things like that. You can make smaller changes that do make a difference. And I think outdoorsy people are more aware because we interact with it day to day, perhaps, but there's a trade-off. But I think the big takeaway, and I think I say this in my professional life as well, is that kind of the idea that we can't make it perfect isn't an excuse for doing nothing. Good is still, it's not perfect, but it's still far better than nothing. And I think we could all bear that in mind and kind of embrace the fact that we are a little bit hypocritical, but humanity is, and that's okay. It's a journey towards sustainability. It's a journey towards being completely environmentally friendly. You're not going to get there overnight, but you can start on that journey. And I think that's really important for people to understand, that they don't have to be completely vegan. They don't have to be completely plastic free. They can just make better choices. And there should be no shaming on that as well. If people are trying to be better, then that's good and healthy. So yeah, I kind of went off topic there, but I think that's what it used.
That's really great. And I totally agree. There is this element of like, as soon as people start to speak up on anything environmental, then it's this, well, I saw you with a plastic straw, or I saw you, here's a picture of you. A lot of people get shamed after that. And it's sort of like, well, if you're not doing this, then you can't take anything. And I think that's not very helpful. It's not very, because we're all human, like you say. I suppose a good segue there is like, before we launch into all the amazing stuff you're doing professionally, I think just personal action and things that, that could be implemented into people's lives. Like, do you have any, there's a bunch of people listening that might be interested in engaging further in their own environmental stuff. Is there something personal that you feel like people could do? Any suggestions?
Yeah, a big thing that I've been doing, and I guess kind of has brought to my attention a little bit more because my girlfriend is vegan, is eating less meat and trying to go as meat free as possible. And actually, I didn't necessarily believe when I got into it that you would feel better and that you could eat in the same way and still have full meals and all this kind of thing, but you really can, and the environmental impact is so big. And again, you don't have to be meat free, but reducing your meat in consumption in terms of reducing land degradation and the kind of the gases emitted from cattle grazing and things like this, if everybody could do that, that would make a massive difference. And again, it's if you're eating meat 6 times a week, decreasing it to 3, I think is definitely doable. There's great vegan cookbooks out there. There's great veggie cookbooks out there and you really can't necessarily taste the difference if you're cooking a similar thing like a chili. I mean, it's still really good food. And it makes a big difference. And you're exploring something new as well. And I found that actually I genuinely do like some of the stuff much more and feel less heavy and stodgy and things like that. And yeah, I would just encourage people to give it a go. And again, you don't have to be vegan, and I guess things get a bit labeled, which I don't really particularly think is helpful. It's fine to just eat less meat, and you don't have to call it anything. You just eat less meat, and that's okay. I would recommend people try that because I think it's an easy way to make a significant difference.
Yeah. It is definitely noticeable that, it is a big thing globally. One of our core issues is addressing that. And there are really important, what you're saying is a spectrum of changes that you can make. Even there's some, some science, reports saying like huge changes, even just keep eating meat, but changing from beef to chicken, you know, and substituting beef to chicken can do as much as half the footprint of your diet, you know, just still eating meat, you know. But then obviously if you reduce meat generally, and you know, it's a whole spectrum. So yeah, I think finding what's accessible to people, and then also learning to sort of love and appreciate the health and the changes to your well-being as well. So I think that's really powerful message. Thanks for that. And so let's now, you became in more recent years, you became sufficiently energized and passionate about this to start engaging professionally with with this now. You've set up something called Natural Distinction, and I don't know if you could just give an overview of what you do, and just so people can understand it, and then we'll dive into a bit more about how businesses could engage or whatever afterwards.
Yeah, great. Yeah, thank you for teaming up on that one. Yeah, so I kind of came about Natural Distinction from wanting to get into conservation. I did a geography degree, so a bit of a brief overview, just kind of to show you how things can change, I guess. I did a geography degree, wanted to do a certain thing, and then decided, well, do you know what? I actually want to do something for the planet. Let's do something. I was trying to get into conservation and didn't really have the experience to do so. So through a couple of different projects I was doing, decided, well, maybe I could try and help. I did a little project for someone and ended up thinking, oh, do you know what? I could actually try and help businesses that have. Sorry, let me start again, Sam.
Yeah, sure. You can just go to the beginning of it again, and so you can, you know, just take a few seconds pause, then just launch into that question again, all about natural distinction, no stress.
Yeah, so Natural Distinction is a business I set up about 14 months ago, and our goal is to essentially help businesses, mainly small to medium-sized businesses, to improve their environmental footprint or to minimize their environmental footprint wherever possible. We focus on doing an audit. So I'm a qualified auditor, and it's just me at the moment. We're kind of a startup. Obviously, last year was quite difficult for us, but it's just me who will audit and do a survey of staff, and then we'll build a policy document and a web page. And then the main thing is the actual ideas of what they can do to be more environmentally friendly, and embedding that culture within their business so that they can run it internally and it has a lasting footprint. Something that I've seen when I was doing projects before I started the business was that either there was a tick box exercise that went on and it wasn't followed through, or there were individual actions going on, but they weren't joined together in any kind of thinking that had continuous improvement. So I want to do something that actually makes a difference. And I think businesses can have an effect because I think people are motivated. I think people do care. I think people are increasingly interested in it as well. And you just have to harness that. So our goal is to do that and to help businesses to actually make a difference. So that's kind of a brief overview of what we do.
Great. Now, this is something that I care very strongly about. Now, there's this really destructive framing in my mind, and I actually was really guilty of this. I can give you a bit of my own background. I run three different businesses, and have done for a long time. And increasingly over the years, I was feeling sort of more hypocrisy about the environmental impact that I was having, and eventually I got to the point where, like, you know what, screw it, I don't even care about money anymore. You know, I want to make sure that I'm implementing, doing whatever I can to make these businesses as green and as health, as regenerative and positive impact as possible. You know, we were making money before, and I'm like, you know what, I don't care if but it got me to this point where eventually I was feeling like I didn't want to live with this jarring thing anymore. And then I started implementing all these changes and reviewing what we were doing. And time again, I kept finding that it was actually of benefit to my business. So I actually increased my bottom line. It saved me money. It was doing a lot of the changes actually, even if I didn't care that much about the environment, would have been a really smart thing to do, right? And so, and then I started helping other businesses around me doing the same. And so I'm, that is a huge hurdle that's actually often not accurate. That's sort of like, sacrifice, like you have to balance your profit versus environmental action. But actually, often you end up enhancing your brand reputation, your customer base, your profit. I would love to hear you talk a little bit about that, and maybe some example or an example of something where you've seen like bottom line improve and environmental action. Well, I don't know if your experience is the same.
Yeah, Sam, I'm just nodding along in total agreement. I think that's exactly kind of what I encounter when I kind of come to the first stage of interacting with businesses, is that idea. And I totally understand it, in that if you've always done something a certain way and you've profited from that, or you've done well out of it, you assume that that must be the best way to do things. And obviously we all think that the new things are scary, and what are the challenges that we're going to face if we implement things. But it's, as I say to businesses, as you say, the reputational improvement that brands can have if they're seen to be doing something, and I say this to people, and they actually are doing it, because there is a reputational risk for not doing something. That there is a reputational risk, and that's really important that people understand that. But if you are doing something, your brand gets a massive boost from it, because people want to believe in products that are doing things for the environment. I mean, or not just the environment, for all across CSR, so social initiatives as well. You've also got the cultural improvement, the cultural impact it has on your business, because people want to work for a firm that cares about more than just their bottom line. And also, what I said that comes along with this is caring for your staff. If your staff care about it, you should care about it too. So again, you're going to have staff retention improvements. You're going to have people wanting to stay and work for you. You're going to have better. Again, it's a long process to measure this, but I would assume staff happiness goes up, better productivity. You're also going to have a recruitment advantage as well. People want to work for firms that care. So again, you're looking to the best talent. And also, as you say, bottom line, there are savings to be made as well. I mean, whether you're looking at heating or lighting or the physical things, but also the things that people don't necessarily consider with, big businesses are starting to realize now, is that as more legislation comes into play, tendering processes require an environmental action for them to kind of use you as a supplier. I have done a project for a client last year, and within a month they had a really significant public sector contract given to them because they had an environmental policy. Another one just 2 months ago with a law firm, signed up to a networking group, and the first thing the networking group said to them was, "Oh, wonderful! It's great to see you doing something for the environment. That's fantastic. We love to work with firms who do things for the environment." It's only a positive. There is no, obviously, I'm going to say this is my business, but there's no negative to this. People care about it. Your staff care about it. Your suppliers care about it. Your customers care about it. You should be doing it, and it'll be of benefit to you. Like you say, your bottom line and your cultural value will improve. So I couldn't agree more with what you said in the question, Sam. Yeah.
Well, that's good. And so now, I'm really happy to hear the shared sort of approach or sort of opinion on that, because I guess what I'm interested now is how we can better communicate that. Like, what is our responsibility of people who've been through that journey? Because now we have whatever small percent of uptake, and really we want to hit that sort of the silent middle on these. So you've got the worst companies, the evil ones that never, their basic business is doing something really bad for the environment. You've got the leaders of the, there's a 5% here, maybe 5% here, and you've got this huge chunk of businesses in the middle. Like, how do we change the narrative on that, and how do we inspire that change? That's a big question. And how do we break through these sort of these kind of well-instilled narratives that climate action is all about sacrifice for the collective good?
I think, well, personally, the way I approach it with I guess that the kind of the business that you've described are the business that I'm kind of trying to target, the businesses that tick along and do well, who aren't necessarily gonna be the leaders or be, as you say, be the ones that are causing the most harm. And the way I kind of tackle it is, well, let's just have a look at your staff, or let me talk to you about things, and I personally, like Natural Distinction, we do a staff survey that surveys that. But I guess in general, what I think is that you have to ask people, well, what do you think about that? What do you think about this? Well, I guess on a personal level. And often the answers are quite informative, because it's, do you want your children or future generations to live in a world that's better than the one do you want to leave it in a better place than it is now? And everybody says yes to that question.
Yeah, who doesn't say yes?
Yeah, it's intuitive. Of course you're going to say yes. You want that. Okay, so what if I could tell you that by doing this, that you can contribute to that, and there's no pitfall. Yeah, you might have to invest at the beginning, like you have to invest in anything, but there's significant advantages to be made, and also this is the way the world is going. So if your business doesn't keep up with this trend, you're going to miss out. That's kind of the other side of things that I think is a message that, again, it's different. People react to different things, but I think that is an important kind of message as well. It's kind of be at the forefront of this rather than being on the tail end of it and struggling to keep up.
Opportunities, yeah.
I think so, yeah. It's changed. I guess it is that question of changing that mindset to seeing opportunities rather than seeing challenges.
One of the big humps is that a lot of businesses operate in a kind of just a survival, like, not thriving, but surviving, especially now it's relevant. I've certainly used and helped guide people using the sustainability sort of revolution as within their operation as a kind of as a jump out of that, almost, as this is a new angle of a new opportunities and sort of like opening new doors, and so, but it can be really hard. And but I don't know if you you also have quite a big chunk of people that fit in that area too. We're just dealing and surviving.
Yeah, 100%. That's something that we've, Natural Extinction, have come up against. I wouldn't say against, because it's totally understandable. It's what all businesses are doing, especially at the moment. It's very tough. But as you say, it's kind of the idea of, if you structure your business like this, and again, structure makes it seem like it's a massive change. If you change some aspects of your business and focus a certain way, who else in your industry is doing this? And I've been massively surprised when you look into some clients that I have. If you're a business that's of a mid-size, okay, if you're clout in your industry, who else is doing this? Who else has got this angle? And when I say angle, I mean you're actually doing something, but I mean you're talking about what you're doing. There isn't a whole lot. There's a lot of big companies that do it because they see the opportunity, and also they have statutory requirements, but there aren't a lot of smaller businesses that have recognized the opportunity to be leaders in their space, and the opportunity is massive. We talked about the benefits before, but I think it's kind of being, I would say, gentle about it and encouraging about it, and kind of, have you thought about this? What about this? And it's a positive, is kind of, and making people think about that. But I agree, it's difficult at the moment because people are surviving, but I think this is a way of diversifying and coming out with a new plan, coming out better than you left it. It's an investment for the future, as all things should be. And yeah, I agree. I think it's just changing that mindset. I guess I'll just kind of repeat what you said in the question, Sam, but
it's okay. No, that's great. And how about a couple of if you've got some practical things that small to medium business could do, one of the things that you often sort of help people sort of with, what sort of things could someone listening right now who's involved, maybe they're a staff member, maybe they're a business owner, what are the sort of areas that they should be looking at to the first steps, an easy sort of entry into this sort of like changes that they're going to start making?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that lots of people listening to this will be aware of, and working in offices, I guess not so much now, but is the recycling systems, the double-sided printing, the procurement of stationery, things like this, things that you think, okay, well, we must have a policy for that. And I'm sure we do print double-sided, don't we? And then you look and, oh no, actually we don't. Or what happens to our ink toners on the printer in okay, well, we go through 10 ink toners a month. I know, they used to be picked up, but they're not anymore. Things like that are easy things to look into. And one of the things that I would suggest as a kind of an easy win is to suggest to your department leader or your senior management team, why don't we have somebody from each department who sits on a team an hour a week, an hour a month. An hour a month is reasonable, I would say, to talk about what would we like to see improved. And then from that internal meeting, you have something to present to management that comes from inside that says, our staff want this to change. And it starts a discussion. I think that's powerful because you're telling your boss, look, this is what the people in this office, this organization want to see, and then I hope, and I think it does, empower the senior management to think, oh, well, this is a value here because successful businesses listen to their employees, don't they? So I think that's something that people could look into, and what I would encourage people to look into.
So yeah, setting up a basic structure to meet and discuss and talk about this. And then my suggestion also, if you are presenting to bosses or, even if you are the boss, is to not ignore the value that it's going to bring. We should print double-sided because we'll save however many thousands of pieces of paper a year, and it's going to save us 50 quid a month or 100 quid a month, and there's no drawback. So don't forget the value when you present these things, because
Absolutely.
Not just financial value, but whatever else it might be. I think that's
Absolutely.
great. I think we're sort of heading towards time now, but I don't know if you have any parting messages or thoughts or anything that you want to sort of wrap up. We'll leave links to Natural Distinction and any of your sort of ocean and other initiatives that you've been involved with. And maybe if you have a contact or a social handle or something that the people can reach out if they want to. And any other parting thoughts, George?
Something that I like is the Howard Zinn quote, small acts when multiplied by millions of people can change the world. I love that because I think it's true. And I think it's something that's attainable and reachable and something that you can think about day to day, in that, when you have a choice about throwing a yogurt pot in the bin or rinsing it out and putting it in recycling, that makes a difference. It does make a difference. Everything makes a difference, So I like that. I like that quote a lot. I think it's simple and memorable.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, and it's because it's empowering, isn't it? Because if you feel like nothing you ever do makes any difference, then you're not going to do it. And I think collectively, it can't happen. Big change can't happen without all of those different drops in the ocean. There's a lot of drops in the ocean, but we need all of we need a good chunk of them to make this change happen. So we need each one of us. So thank you very much, George, for chatting with us today and sharing your wisdom, and looking forward to sort of more interactions in the future. And I'm definitely going to check more of Natural Distinction as well.
Yeah, thanks very much, Sam. Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll just drop you can check out our Instagram. It's just natural.distinction.
Yeah.
Or check us out, naturaldistinction.co.uk. Thanks very much for having me. I love what the Earth Project's doing. I'm really excited to see how you guys get on with everything you're doing.